Oh, yeah, I mean, music has just always been my thing. Like ever since I started drumming, like at like 9 years old is when I started drumming, started taking lessons, and so it was always my thing. And then I eventually branched off to like other instruments and things, and so it was something I always wanted to do. I didn't initially want to do, I didn't initially want to teach. When I went to college, I started out just as like a performance major, just like a music major. But my dad and some of my other mentors were telling me like, how are you gonna make any money doing just music, blah blah blah, just playing music. And so I decided to try out teaching, and so I actually started teaching private lessons in college, and it turns out I really enjoyed it, and so I decided to change my major over to music education, and so that was what kind of got my start, and so I started to be and so I started working towards the music ed degree.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters in That podcast. I'm your host Brian, and joining me today, Adam Zalewski. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
No worries. And I was checking out your About page, and it looks like you do a lot of works with, is it your local church, or you kind of jump around a little bit as a musician for various churches?
I mainly play at my own church, but I do teach and I do work with a lot of church drummers and get them proficient enough to play in church setting, and that's definitely come a long way in its complexity these days. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, where are you hailing from?
I'm actually from Michigan, Port Huron, Michigan.
Oh, that's so sweet. And I guess, are you a big Michigan Wolverine fan?
I'm actually not a huge sports fan, so whatever team you want me to root for, I'll root for.
Well, unfortunately, the Michigan Wolverines lost last night to TCU, so I just didn't want to be that Ohio State Buckeye guy that's kind of poking fun at you. But unfortunately, Ohio State
No,
lost too, so it's all
no,
good.
it's all good.
Yeah. So welcome to the podcast. And the way this works is just get to know you a little bit more, both as an individual and a drummer. I'm just going to ask you some questions right here. So you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So let's start with the first one. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into drumming?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. I saw the movie when I was young. I was like 9 years old. I saw the movie That Thing You Do, and I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it's about like a one-hit wonder band, and I thought the main character was the coolest, so I wanted to be just like him. And he played drums in the movie, and so I was like, "Mom, I want to play drums." And so eventually they got me some lessons, and I never looked back after that. I started playing drums, and that was my thing.
Well, so how did you get into being a church musician?
Yeah, so I've been a Christian for most of my life, and I grew up in the church and all that, and so that was kind of like the first outlet to play live. I joined like the middle school worship band at my church, and that was kind of like my first exposure to playing with other people. Over the years I was in different bands and things, but always was consistently playing in church growing up, and even to this day I play. So
That's pretty sweet. And I guess, is your drum set nearby by any chance, or is it?
it is. Um, do you want me to show you real quick?
You got the blurry background, so it might be a little bit hard. But
Yeah,
if you just
that's
want to
true.
walk through it, that's fine too. Otherwise, you're welcome to show it too. It's your call.
Well, maybe you can just like put it in post or something. But I have a Thomas Star Classic Maple and mostly Zildjian cymbals. So and I'm yeah. So I actually got the Star Classic as kind of like a birthday present to myself in September just recently. So I'm loving it.
Is this a kit you've been rolling with a good while, or is this a relatively new one?
Yeah. So just September of 2022 is when I got it. So I haven't had it for very long, but it's a major upgrade for sure. I was running with just a normal Tama Rockstar for the longest time. I got some good sounds out of that one, but this one, blows that out of the water as far as like recordability. And yeah, so I'm loving it.
That's pretty sweet. How many drum sets have you had?
I have, I've had several. I've got a PDP student kit over there, Maple, and that was pretty good. And before I got my Tama Rockstar when I was really little. It was probably like my second drum set. I had this like off-brand swinger line when I was really little. That was my very first one. It was like the typical beginner wine red color. Um, but once I was in my band, I needed a second kit, and so I bought a Tama Superstar, kind of the newer Tama Superstars, and it was birch. And just over the years, I've realized I'm not a huge fan of the birch kits. So I eventually got rid of that one and went back to just using my Rockstar, and but now I've got the Star Classic Maple, and so I'm really happy with that one.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, you rolled with a good number of kits too. Have you ever played on electric drum kits before?
I have. I'm not a huge fan of the electronic drum kits. I mean, it's kind of fun sometimes to go into Guitar Center and mess around with some of them when they have some like cool sounds and things. And I do feel like the technology has come a long way, but it's just not quite there yet to give the same feel. I would maybe like to get one someday, maybe when the technology comes a little bit further, um, but yeah, for the most part, I stick with the acoustics.
I guess what sort of brand was the electric drum set you had, or have you not officially owned one? You just kind of rented
No,
briefly.
I haven't owned one. I played an Alesis, like one of the upper end Alesis is at Guitar Center recently, and that one was pretty nice. I just can't really say much. I've kind of heard that they don't last like quality wise. Maybe I don't know. I could be wrong on that. It just seems like they kind of break down after a while.
Yeah, I think it's give or take depending on like what sort of drum set out of Elisa's you're going for. But I've always rolled with Roland. It's been very convenient with me. But I guess this kind of leads into this question. I guess, what do you love most about drumming?
Um, just drumming itself, I love just like the creative aspect of it and how just being able to come up with your own ideas and grooves and fills and making it really like mesh with the music. I think when you're playing like a pitched instrument like guitar or piano, you're very much restricted to what the chords of the music and things, and so you've got a limited amount of tones you can work with. But with drumming, it's all rhythm, and it's just like I think you can come up with so many different ideas for the same song. And that's kind of what I like to do. On my YouTube channel, I like to make, like church music, but it's like I like to take the original song and kind of make it my own and like change the drum part and maybe change the bass line and stuff so it fits together better. And yeah, so I think just the creative side of it and really coming up with my own ideas. So.
Yeah, I get what you mean too. And normally I would say the biggest ones that I've heard in sort of the various interviews I've done was been sort of some sort of therapy. Do you think you kind of feel that way too?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's like my outlet. It's actually, it's a hobby of mine, but it's kind of how I make my living. It's my primary living, and so it's kind of my thing. I mean, of course, I play guitar and bass guitar, and I went to school for music and stuff, so I know my way around instruments. But my first love is always going to be drumming, and so. It's yeah, so I mean, some people might think I'm a little bit one-dimensional because I'm just all about drumming and music and stuff, but I think it's cool to just have, you know, it it's not necessary to have all kinds of interests.
Yeah, I get what you mean too. And I always consider drumming a nice little hobby, but it also works with the exercise too. So I imagine, do you get a nice sweat after performing and I guess also practicing too?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends on the song for sure. If you got something that's a lot faster and you're practicing a lot, it definitely builds up a sweat. But I don't know how great it is for losing weight or anything like that.
Well, I think it's like you said, the faster it is, I think the more calories you probably will burn. But I think it kind of
Mm,
varies depending on like, I was trying to think of maybe something in terms of like maybe the muscles you're moving or like sort of if you're doing a lot of fills, as I probably
mm.
like to say. So something like that. I don't know, but we'll get into that a little bit. In fact, that might be a little fun question we ask a little later on in the interview here. But uh, what sticks do you play with? Have you jumped around with various ones, or are you kind of stuck with one?
Yeah, I mean, I've used different ones over the years. I use right now. I stick with the Vader 5As. I just feel like they last longer and they don't break as quickly. I was using Vic Firth 5As for a while, but I felt like they would break a lot quicker. And that could just be anecdotal to like the ones I've gotten. But I feel like the Vader 5As work really well. And then when I'm doing like practice pad type stuff, I had some concert sticks for a while. I don't exactly remember the type, but they don't make those ones I have anymore. And so I broke one after many years of just using them on the pad. And so I actually picked up some Vic Firth Symphonic Series ones, and they're actually pretty nice. So I'm digging those. They're a little bit longer than normal, but so that took some getting used to. But I like those. I like to use a little bit of a thicker stick when I'm working on just like practice pads type stuff and technique and rolls and things like that.
I see. Well, it's funny with, I think it's pronounced Vater, since it's, I think, a German sort of brand.
Really?
Well,
Yeah, of course, the Americans don't know how to pronounce anything right, right?
that was actually an interview I did last week with, his name is Manny Gerard. He's a little kid, and he's just an up-and-coming drummer, too. But I think it was his dad. He was saying, like, you pronounce it Vater, since it's German, too, since it's Vater. I always thought whenever people were saying about those sticks, I thought they were actually saying Vader with Vader. So that's what I thought. It's only a one consonant difference. So I always thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, it's like you said, Americans tend to butcher certain things too, like how they butcher
Absolutely.
Chinese food. So you see what I mean?
Absolutely. So
I see.
maybe I should start calling it Vater from now on. Vater.
Almost like water, but Vater, something like that. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
a while. It's been a while since I did German. In fact, I took 4 years of that in high school, and then I think I ended up losing it after going to college. So it's now unfortunately a bit of a lost art.
Yeah.
But
If
just
you don't use it, you lose it, right?
something like that. I guess. Did you take any language back in your school days?
I took Spanish, but it was just like a couple years of Spanish, and I kind of just did the bare minimum, and I couldn't really tell you a whole lot.
We just wanted to pass the class. That's all we wanted to do and get the credits for what we needed to graduate. So
Yeah.
I see what you mean too. But actually, German was pretty fun too. And I don't know, did your school take any special trips anywhere? I know it's kind of getting off topic, but just to kind of talk some fun stuff here.
Not something like out of the state, but I have gone on some missions trips in Mexico, and so I definitely had to dust off my Spanish a little bit there. But I wasn't, I kind of relied on some of the other members who were much more fluent at speaking, and then also in Mexico, a lot of people did still speak English, so I didn't really have to do a whole lot with that.
That's pretty good, yeah. I guess, so what part of Mexico were you more in the upper half, or were you close to like Mexico City?
I'm pretty sure it was the upper half. I'm trying to remember. I think it's Bucieres or something like that is where I was based out of. But yeah, I can't remember the exact location there.
I see. Actually, I've never been to Mexico too, and obviously, the cities would be really nice because you hear about Cancun, all the fancy resorts and everything too. And I guess Mexico City, maybe a nice city, but maybe some dirty parts here and there. I'm not too sure, but it seems like anything in between is not very good, to put it nicely.
Yeah.
Bad shanty towns and stuff like that too. So is that kind of what you've seen too on your mission trips?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some rough spots, but we made sure to stay safe and all that. But but yeah, so we would do like work projects down there and stuff like that, and help a local church that we're kind of partnered with down there. And so they kind of told us where are the spots to avoid and things.
Stay out of this. Do not enter this zone right here. That's what
Yeah.
they probably told you. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks for doing your work right there. Hope you can continue doing your missionary work. That might actually tie into COVID, but we'll get into that a little bit. Let's talk about doing drum covers. So I guess, how do you pick the song? What sort of gear do you use before you upload it to YouTube?
Yeah, so I mean, the goal, the overall goal with my YouTube channel is really to reach more drummers for my business, and that's just my teaching and teaching more drummers. And so really, I just see is the covers. Of course, I enjoy making them, but it's more so to reach more drummers in order to teach them. And so I'll pick songs based on what people are searching. And so I try to pick songs that are more recent in the church space, the worship space, the gospel space, or whatnot, and then I'll either do them like note for note covers, or I'll try to like play with them a little bit and kind of make it my own. Because I don't know, I'm sure you have a lot of experience in social media and stuff like that, but it's like you only have like a certain amount of time to get someone's attention. And so if you got this long intro where there's no drumming happening, I just feel like you lose people's attention. And so I like to pick stuff that's a little bit more exciting. And if it's not exciting, I kind of like to change it up to make it more exciting and more exciting for the drummer. And, of course, I'm targeting drummers. And so if I can make the drums, a little bit higher in the mix and stuff, that's kind of what I like to do. And so as far as the equipment that I use, I run Pro Tools for the recording side of it. I have a Tascam 1608, and I do it that way. Eventually, I want to get a little bit better interface to have some more channels, but it's been working so far for me really well. And then as far as video, I use all GoPros really pretty much, and then I just edit it all together in my video editing program.
I would say, is it that Adobe Premiere or is it Final Cut Pro?
No, I actually use a Cyberlink Power Director because I'm kind of cheap.
That's new. No, it's good. No, it's good. I wasn't trying to be offensive. Sorry if it came off that way.
No problem. No problem.
Right.
But yeah, so like I just feel like Adobe and all those other ones, they probably have way more features than I actually need. And the Cyberlink Power Director definitely serves what I need it for, and I don't have to pay an arm and a leg for it.
That's true, yeah. I had to say, though, that's the first time I actually heard about it, too, and because I've been so used, most people have been like Final Cut Pro, some people have done iMovie at times, or they've done Adobe Premiere, or I guess one of the Adobe features, whichever one that it is, but I think it's Premiere that does those ones.
Mm-hmm.
And did you mention which microphones you use to record the sound?
No, I didn't. I actually do need to kind of upgrade my microphones. But I use Beta 52 on the kick. That one seems to serve me pretty well. SM57 on the snare. And then for my toms, I actually use SM58s just because that's what I've got right now. Eventually I want to upgrade those to some actual like tom mics someday. And then I have some M Audio Novas that I use for overheads. I don't even know if they make those anymore, but they're decent. But I definitely want to get some dedicated overheads as well. And then I do have some stacks on my drum set, and the stacks that I have are not very loud. And so eventually when I get a new interface to get some more channels on there, I would like to be able to get some dedicated mics for those stacks so that I can control the volume a little bit more individually instead of having to turn up the overheads on certain parts when I'm mixing. But yeah, I think that covers it.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, that's pretty good. I guess I've just been so used to using electric sets the whole time too, since living in the same house with my parents the whole time. They kind of couldn't deal with the acoustic sounds since it bangs so loud. So to be honest, we make
Yeah.
drum, or I always like to say, make drum go boom, that sort of thing. And,
Yeah.
so I've always found it a little bit tricky, but I've been used to just using MIDI the whole time. Have you ever used MIDI for pretty much anything?
Yeah, I mean, I use MIDI as like the arranger in Pro Tools or even this other program that I use. And I'll use it sometimes if I'm making like my own bass line, I'll use MIDI and I can just kind of plot it out and get what I want from it. But I've never had experience using an actual instrument with like MIDI in.
I see. It's funny when you mention Pro Tools too, because this is the second interview in a row somebody said they use Pro Tools for mixing and putting everything together too. So it's a lot more popular than I thought it was, because obviously they say it's the industry standard, but it's practically an arm and a leg just trying to get it too. How much was it for you?
Yeah. I really can't remember. I mean, I've had so many iterations and upgrades of it, but I don't think I paid that much for it. I think I think maybe it was like 1,000 or something, but the
Only a thousand.
yeah, I mean, um, but the thing about Pro Tools that bothers me the most is getting it to work on your computer, getting it to work on your system. I am a PC guy, and so I use PC, and I actually just upgraded my laptop recently, and I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to get Pro Tools to work. But it did take me quite a while to get it working, but now it works really smooth. And technically, it's not. I have Pro Tools 12 right now, and technically, it's not approved for use on Windows 11, but it's working pretty smooth for me, so I'll take it.
That's good to hear. Yeah, the last thing you need is upgrade it and it doesn't work on the computer. It's be like, no, I had to send X amount of dollars to get a new computer. So
Yeah.
that's what you mean. And I guess let's jump into some of the bands you've been a part of. I guess how many have you been a part of? And if you want to talk about your experiences with them, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was in not very many bands, honestly. Like I was in a high school band for a little while, and we weren't that serious, but it was a little bit heavier rock, but it was kind of fun. The lead singer was highly influenced by Creed, which is kind of silly, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty fun to do that for a little while, just for high school. But then when I got out of high school, I joined a band called I the Envy, and we were a band for several years, and we had a lot of fun. We, recorded an album, and we gigged all over Michigan and stuff. We never went on tours like outside Michigan or anything like that, but eventually we all got serious and wanted to go to college and all that, so we broke up inevitably, like a lot of bands do.
Sorry about you're going to jump into your church groups. I guess, have you been with this church group for a good while, or have you kind of jumped in between like different musicians?
Yeah, I mean, I've played at like many different churches growing up, but I eventually got married and I moved out to Port Huron, and and my wife at the time, well, she still does, but she works on staff at the church I attend, which is Colonial Woods Missionary Church in Port Huron. And so once I moved to Port Huron, I started playing at that church, and so I've been there about 4 or 5 years now, playing pretty regularly. So it's quite a bit of fun.
I see. And I guess I did check out some of your videos, and one of them was kind of talking about how to overcome mistakes too. I guess have you had those instances of a lot of mistakes in maybe one song, or is it just like one? It's like darn it, but you still managed
Nah,
to.
I mean, it happens all the time, man. It's part of learning an instrument. Nobody's gonna play everything perfect all the time, but we strive to be able to get to that point, right? But yeah, it's just a realistic part of it, and then we kind of work on. A lot of times we can learn from our mistakes and kind of figure out what to work on when we do make big mistakes and stuff. So
Absolutely, yeah. That's a big thing. Learn from your mistakes. So, I guess jump into your YouTube channel. Speaking of which, I guess when did you start it, and is there something you hope to achieve with it?
Yeah, so I don't exactly remember when I started my I probably started my YouTube channel like back in high school probably, but I didn't really do a whole lot with it. I mean, I just posted a few like original songs that I wanted to work on and stuff, and but it wasn't until I wanted to kind of start my business with which is what I have now, which is Complete Worship Drummer, and it's like a coaching program that teaches church drummers everything that they need to play for any worship band. And so that's kind of the goal of the YouTube channel now. It's just lead generation and find more drummers that I can help. And so that's kind of the purpose behind it. Um, and I've definitely been kind of focusing on it more lately because I know that YouTube's like a blue ocean full of all kinds of drummers. Like if anyone wants to learn how to play something, YouTube's probably the first place they're going to go to try and learn it or find some cover of someone playing it, you know?
Yeah, I think they said the big sort of videos that get a lot of views is more like the how-to videos. So, more like say how to do this or some sort of do-it-yourself projects. I
Yeah,
guess
for sure.
I guess what made you want to kind of do this little business model of yours?
Well, I was actually teaching for public school. I have a certified music education degree from the state of Michigan, and so I was teaching in public school for about 5 years or so. Various schools. I taught middle school band for a little while, and then I focused on elementary music because I felt like middle school band was a nightmare. Um, and so when I moved to Port Huron, I started working for Port Huron, and I had some good years, but it was pretty rough. The schools were pretty rough that I was at, and once COVID hit, I was like, oh man, I can't go back, you know. And so that was kind of my opportunity to start working on something of my own. And so that's kind of when Complete Worship Drummer was born, where I created a program that helps them play at the highest level. And so that was kind of my start, and it's been going strong ever since.
I see. I guess how was it rough? Was it just rough neighborhoods, or is the kids just not very focused on it?
Yeah, I mean, it varies, but it's just like the classroom management and stuff. Like the kids come from rough areas, they got a lot of stuff going on, and maybe they come from less stable environments, so they don't know how to act right and all that stuff. And I know part of that's my job to teach them, but it was very taxing that last year. And so getting my start doing this doesn't, it's not without its challenges or anything like that, but I don't think I'll ever go back to teaching in a classroom.
I see. And I guess I probably asked this earlier, but I guess what made you want to be, in this case, a music teacher growing up, I
Oh,
guess?
yeah, I mean, music has just always been my thing. Like ever since I started drumming, like at like 9 years old is when I started drumming, started taking lessons, and so it was always my thing. And then I eventually branched off to like other instruments and things, and so it was something I always wanted to do. I didn't initially want to do. I didn't initially want to teach. When I went to college, I started out just as like a performance major, just like a music major. But my dad and some of my other mentors were telling me like, "How are you gonna make any money doing just music? Blah blah blah. Just playing music." And so I decided to try out teaching, and so I actually started teaching private lessons in college. And it turns out I really enjoyed it, and so I decided to change my major over to music education. And so that was what kind of got my start, and so I started working towards the music ed degree.
I see. Sorry, I was gonna say I see. Got a little something caught in my throat there, but I guess what's some of the challenges you kind of faced? Kind of, I guess I was trying to think because I know this kind of jumps into getting a job in the music industry, and I guess also being a teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I as far as like getting a teaching job these days, I don't think it's that difficult because there is a teacher shortage. Because there's just, I think there's less and less people who want to be teachers in a classroom because the job is getting more and more demanding and the pay is not going up. And so as far as like getting a teaching job, it wasn't that difficult for me, but making a living doing music full time is definitely difficult, and I'm very thankful for how far I've come. I've definitely had to invest a lot of money in order to learn how I do what I do. Setting up my program, like all the tech involved, all the, reaching out to prospects and trying to get customers and all that. And so if anyone's trying to make their mark in music, you have to be teachable. If you're not teachable, if you think you know it all, or if you think you don't have anything to learn, or if you think everything's a scam, you really got to work on that, and you have to be willing to invest in yourself, especially when it comes to like drum lessons or even learning business or what have you, because the only reason I've been able to get to where I am is because I've been willing to invest in myself, invest in people who know a lot more than me to get where I'm at now.
Would you say that's probably your advice you give to people who want to walk in your shoes? Kind of a little similar
Definitely.
path. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. So like investing in yourself is probably the most important thing. Like if I didn't, of course my parents were gracious enough to put me in drum lessons when I was little, and I know not everybody has that opportunity, but once you do later on when you start working and stuff, like I would highly recommend whatever you want to learn, somebody else out there already knows how to do it. They already know it. So just seek out that person and try to learn from them, and don't be cheap. Don't be cheap when it comes to investing in yourself because you get what you pay for. So if you want to just be like a YouTube drummer, you're only going to get so far. But if you want to get really far, you got to invest in your skills.
Absolutely, too. And going back to what you mentioned about the teacher shortage and everything, too, I think it's because some people these days seem to like criticize teachers for being like too woke or something like that, or I guess anything else. Do you know any teachers who had any sort of that trouble at all, or I guess any sort of?
Um, nothing in my experience, but I'm fully in agreement with that. All that stuff's kind of hairy and stuff. Like I kind of feel like we should just keep teaching children and not delving into all this like political stuff. Like I think that's the parents' job to teach the kids more of the belief side of it, and we shouldn't have teachers like trying to influence kids to believe certain ways or whatever, and we should be teaching kids the things that are actually going to enable them to be successful when they're out on their own and things and less. But yeah, I mean that's definitely a hairy topic for sure.
I can see what you mean too. It's like you just need to have like these normal sort of conversations with people, like the way we're doing it here. So I mean, I think that's the way you gotta go with it going forward. So I think now it's just gotta cool down. Hopefully it does for this new year here. Happy New Year, by the way. So
Thank you.
no worries. So hopefully we'll see how this year goes. Fingers crossed. So, well, we won't get too
Yeah.
much in political stuff here. So this one, I jumped a little late on this one, but who would you consider has been your biggest influence? And if you want to list off any others, go ahead.
Hmm. My biggest influence. I guess you mean as far as drummers go?
Drummers, if you want to say like any other musicians, if there's any, but it's mostly been drummers since we're talking mainly drum work here.
Hmm. I mean, influences in my style. I don't know. I feel like that I can't just pick one. Um, some of the drummers that I really like, Larnell Lewis, of course, is a big influence. I really like Anika Niles. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. It might be Anika Niles. I can't remember. She's really great. And then I also like Thomas Pridgeon. Huge fan of the Mars Volta. And yeah, that's kind of That's kind of like my main three. Of course, the greats like Steve Gadd, Simon Phillips, like all those guys. All of those have been definitely been an influence on my playing, and yeah,
I guess. So do you ever like listen to contemporary Christian music?
absolutely. I mean, that's kind of my business. So I gotta listen to it, and I play it pretty much every week, and so I do enjoy it. I do think it's I think a lot of people kind of turn their nose up to it sometimes, of course, because maybe they're not a Christian and they don't listen to that style of music. But even a lot of Christians kind of turn their nose up to it because they feel like it's so like simple, or because it's maybe they feel like it's manufactured and designed to create like an emotional response. But I feel like they're kind of looking at the music too much, where it's like the purpose behind it is just for people to worship to. And so it's not necessarily meant to be some kind of like you know, complex music with all kinds of complicated things going around. Because a lot of these churches, they have volunteer praise bands, and they've got to be able to play that music. And if the music's written very complex, they won't be able to pull it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I guess the reason why I said it, and this is probably me also getting confused with the various genres. I know much about gospel, and I don't know if R&B, or maybe some R&B is kind of tied into it too, but uh, the reason why, there's a friend of mine I actually interviewed a while back. He does strictly contemporary Christian music. His name is Matt Jackson, aka CCM drummer. I guess, have you heard of him first?
I haven't. I haven't. I'm not familiar.
Very nice guy. Go check out his channel too. That's pretty much all he does, but it keeps it simple. He just puts his one camera up, kind of introduces himself, saying like, "This is a song I'm going to be playing." Jumps right into it, closes it out, short and sweet. That's pretty much all he does right there. And I guess if you tried to experiment with any other genres before saying like, "This is the one I'm going to be playing with on my YouTube channel."
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the focus for me right now. Of course, I love other genres, and I've kind of played with the ideas and maybe doing some more like secular covers and things of just other drummers that I'm interested in. Of course, when I was in my band after high school, it was more progressive rock type stuff where, the music would change up a lot. And that's kind of what I gravitate towards, where, like half times, double times, changing time signatures. I do enjoy a lot of that kind of stuff. So I actually been listening to a band called Vola lately, which I've been really enjoying. But yeah,
Let's try to remember Vola. I don't know. Are they relatively new? Or are they've been around a good while?
I'm actually not sure. I mean, I think they've been around for a little while, but I've only just started listening to them recently, and I'm really digging their stuff.
It's funny when I mention about progressive rock too, because I immediately think of Jethro Tull in that kind
Hmm.
of subgroup too. Have you ever tried any songs from them?
I haven't.
I guess, does your dad introduce you to classic rock at all, or is he kind of into like some of the same genres you were into?
No, he's definitely into the classic rock. I just never, I never really got that into it. Because I think a lot of it sounds very similar, and a lot of it's, I don't know. I feel like a lot of it's kind of boring, where it's just, hi hat, kick, snare type stuff, and so I kind of gravitate towards more like, progressive, like Mars Volta, Snarky Puppy, Vola, and stuff like that.
I see. Yeah, it's best to challenge yourself every now and again too, especially with those time signature changes. And you also gotta make sure you get it right too when this note happens. That's when we immediately switch to this time signature too. So I can
Yeah,
see what
for
you mean.
sure, for
I can
sure.
see what you mean. All right. So I do have to ask the hard question too, but I guess, how bad did COVID impact you, your family, and your community?
I mean, it was definitely a huge change, but in a way, COVID was somewhat of a blessing for me. Which is, it's kind of weird to say. I know a lot of people had a really tough time with it, but for me, I was working at public school, as an elementary music teacher. And once COVID started, they kind of shut down in person learning, and the music teachers were not required to report. We had to do a little bit of like some video lessons or something like that, but we didn't have nearly as much responsibility as the general education teachers. And so it's very much time where it was just almost like I had a bunch of time off and I was still getting paid by the school district. And so that was my ticket to start what I'm doing now, because I had all this extra time to kind of start my business. And so in that respect, COVID was definitely a blessing. Um, but as far as and but as far as like just being at home all the time, like that was pretty it was pretty crazy. Like I remember my wife and I, we would go on walks and stuff even when it was super cold out just to be able to get out of the house. But overall our world didn't really like turn upside down. Like I didn't necessarily like lose my job and she didn't lose her job or anything like that, but it was definitely different.
I guess, did you have any brushes with COVID, or was it more just like typical cold and flu?
No, we definitely got it a few times, but it wasn't anything bad. It was uh just kind of normal fever, like cold symptoms and stuff like that, but it wasn't anything to be super alarmed about.
That's good to hear. Yeah, it is funny when you mentioned about the blessing that I guess COVID kind of gave you guys, because well, that's something I usually used to ask, because sometimes people were able to like get into YouTube, for instance, or try some other projects, or even give up something. I heard one of my interviews, the guy gave up cigarettes, so that was always a good thing. I
Yeah,
guess
for sure.
did it allow you to also focus on YouTube? And I guess, was there any other projects you decided to do that were maybe like hobbies or part of your business model?
No, not really. I only started doing YouTube. I did a little bit of YouTube in the beginning, but I was more so focused on Facebook. I do have a Facebook group of you know, like 2,500 church drummers or so, and so that was kind of my focus. Um, and so in the beginning, I was mostly focused on Facebook. But now I've kind of branched out and I'm kind of more focused on YouTube, and I'm really enjoying that. But I didn't do a whole lot of YouTube in the beginning because YouTube is definitely like one of those long games, man. It takes a long time to get the subscribers and make sure you're putting out quality content. I used to think that you had to be like super consistent. Like, of course, consistency is important, but I think quality is more important than consistency.
It seems like that, but I know one of the guys I talked to, a good friend of mine, it seemed like he had to just keep posting over and over again. And I think it also ties in with the shorts that they now seem to advertise a good bit with YouTube. That seem to only last like 15 seconds. Do you know how to make them any longer at all? Because mine only seem to just go 15 seconds. That's about it.
I'm pretty sure you can. I think the max is a minute, and the only way I've been able to do it is I'll edit it and stuff and make it on my computer, make sure it looks pretty and all that, the text, and then I send the video to my phone, and then I upload it from my phone, and then I've been able to get them like a minute long.
I was trying that too. I'm going to have to see again, because I was able to finally get it to my phone, which I was actually pretty happy about. But it seemed like when I was trying to like post it and everything, it only gave me 15 seconds. So I don't know if it's like an option you have to choose in the beginning there too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to see at some point. So I guess let's jump into some fun questions right here. So what is your favorite drink? And let's start with alcoholic first, and then you can jump into your non-alcoholic drink.
Well, I'll be totally honest with you, my friend. I don't really drink. I'm not like against it or anything, but my wife and we've never really been like huge drinkers. And so when I was in my band and stuff, I would drink beer every now and then, but nothing like nothing like I don't have any like juicy stories to tell you or anything like that. But yeah, it's I'm kind of boring in that respect. I kind of mostly stick with water, and I'll have like a ginger beer every now and then, but nothing super alcoholic or anything.
No, I see. Actually, it's a good thing too, but every now and again, you just need to kind of let loose a little bit.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm hoping it doesn't end up like a hangover moment. You just wake up in Vegas and it's like, what's going on? That sort of thing. And these things happen while you're obliterated, just for lack of a better term. So you at least know what
Yep.
I mean. All right. And you did mention about water, ginger beer. Okay. So was there ever a song that was too tough for you to play and you either gave up or you had to come back later and try again?
Um, yeah, I mean, so there's this gospel drummer. He's one of the drummers for Elevation Worship. His name's Otis Williams, and he puts out these like I don't know. He's like one of the drummers of Elevation Worship. They have like a few, and he puts out these videos with these really cool intros to the songs. And so I have one on my YouTube channel. The won't it's the intro for Won't Stop Now. And so I wanted to learn how to play his intro like exactly how he does it. And boy, that took me a long time to get that one. I literally had to like sit there and notate out every single beat that he was playing and like slow down the video so I could figure exactly out what he was doing. And so I ended up getting that one. But there's another one called My Testimony. Like he does an intro for the song My Testimony. And so I have that one all notated out, but I still have been kind of procrastinating getting it because it's been really challenging. And so I've definitely been working on that one, and I haven't been able to get it completely yet. So I'm still working on it.
I see. Yeah. There's always something a German does that's either like too complicated. Is it more like kind of fills and stuff, or is he like kind of just varying, kind of changing it up? It may be like simple 4/4, but maybe he's like hitting the snare in like odd places. Is it kind of like that?
Yeah, it's extremely syncopated, and then he plays. I think it's like 90 something BPM, 30-second notes. So some of the passages are pretty darn fast, and it's just not super common sticking that I usually play. And so it's like whenever you're trying to learn what other people play and it's like outside of what you normally play, it takes a long time to get it.
I see. All right. So next one here is, which drum cover do you love the most, or at least one you got in mind for future project?
You mean on my channel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one that I do like the most right now is probably the Raise the Hallelujah. That was kind of the first like worship drum cover where I actually did my own remix of the song, and so I'm really enjoying that one. And I do have another one that's lined up to come out this month. That one's Make Room. It's a different song called Make Room, and so I'm excited for that one. And then I'm always looking for more songs to play, so and kind of play with it, make it my own. And so yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I see. And is there a particular drum cover you always go on YouTube, or at least if you're bored every now and again, you go and check out the way you were kind of referencing it earlier?
Not really. I'm more so just kind of I'm always looking for new songs that I think the drumming is interesting, and I think there's a lot of drummers out there that just want they just want to stay in the pocket the whole time. But I think we as drummers we can do more. We can do more to serve the music than just strictly pocket, and we can add a lot more to it than just being a timekeeper. And so I always am looking for more songs like that, songs that are a little more to it.
I see. Yeah. All right. And the last one here is, what is currently your favorite song, or is there one that you like listen to a lot these days?
Yeah, it's here I can pull it up real quick. It's the band Vola, and there's actually two on I believe their newest album that I've been really enjoying a lot. I'll look it up here just so I can make sure I get the.
Gotta play the Jeopardy music right now.
Yeah.
Do
So
do do do. I was gonna say you got it?
yeah, just give me 1 second. I need to be able to look at the. I'm trying to find the actual album. Oh, okay, here we go. So the album's Witness, which is I think their latest album to 2021, and 24 Light Years is the first song that I really enjoy, and then the second one is Napalm. So if whoever your listeners are, if they want to check those out, check them out. They're pretty awesome, in my opinion.
I think somebody might check them out. Let's see. Guys, let me know in the comments what you guys think of the groups that you just mentioned here. So I guess this one I just kind of thought up right here, but I know you talked about secular artists earlier, I guess. Was there any particular one you really liked that you want to do a drum cover on?
Um, yeah, I mean, I thought about doing a Volo one, or maybe someday a Mars Volta one, but man, Thomas Pridgeon is just a beast. So that one would take me a long time to get. Or even John Theodore, he was the drummer earlier on in the Mars Volta, and so he's quite the beast as well. And so I think if I wanted to do one of those songs, it would probably take me quite a bit of time to get them.
I see. Yeah, you tend to find, I don't want to say a lot of the secular ones, or even just the ones that came out of the 70s and 80s. A lot of excellent drummers, too. I know Neil Peart was always one I like to reference, too, but you can't forget about Bonham, or even some of the ones from Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, those kind of groups. So, I don't know. Maybe at some point, but maybe that'd just be a nice little fun project down the road for you if you wanted to try something from one of those groups. Would you?
Yeah. Maybe.
All right. We'll have to see. To be continued. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, Adam, we're down to the last question right here. Did you have any words or any questions for me?
No, not really. How did you get started, like interviewing other drummers?
Uh, well, podcasting was something that was always on my mind, but I was having a hard time trying to pick the niche, for instance. So, I was being I think it ties in with the YouTube channel too, of saying like I want to keep in music, but how can I do it? So I actually looked up a couple guys in our drum community who've done sort of what we're doing here. It's like these little interviews, podcast interviews. Some of them with like higher end drummers. There's like Thomas Lang, and that's at least the first one there. Unfortunately, I forget some of the other names at the moment, but I actually got it with a friend of mine who's actually a drummer down in Nashville. He's part of those country groups too. And I went to college with him, and I just asked, like, come on for an interview. And it took a little longer than it should have, but we got it to work out in the end. So,
Yeah.
and hence, All Music Matters, and that podcast was born. Then I met a good number of friends in my small drum community. Managed to interview a good number of them, so
That's
it's been good.
awesome.
So it's been good. And ever since then, just reaching out to various drummers, regardless of size, just to get to know their story a little bit more. And I also wanted it too, and this kind of came a bit later, was it's meant to kind of break down those little barriers, especially now with like the technology these days. Because now it's like, well, we're not really going to be talking anymore. We're not going to have conversations. We're just going to mainly be chatting through our phone. It'll be like chatbots above our heads saying like LOL or something like that too. So
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do. So
Cool.
it's a nice little project going forward. I actually think I thought of something else, so I'll mention that in my next video with my Q&A. So stay tuned for that.
Nice.
All right, all good? Or do you want me to, or was there anything else you want to say?
No, that's cool. I mean, if anyone's curious about, potentially working with me, you can check out CompleteWorshipDrummer.com. I work with anybody who wants to play in church, and anybody who maybe wants to play in like a Christian band or anything like that. So that's kind of my shameless plug there.
That sounds good. All right, so the last question here. One of the things I kind of noticed, I think people really need some sort of hope these days. So you've been blessed in a certain amount of ways because you didn't really lose your job. You didn't really hit rock bottom because of COVID. But some people have. So what sort of message of hope you give to musicians and people out there?
I think like I was saying before, just keep pushing, and also, you have to work on one thing that I've learned, like on my journey of building my business and things, is that your mindset is everything. You know, the way you think about yourself, and the you know the way, either positive or negative. Like if you're thinking negative thoughts all the time, that's going to affect your reality. And so if you're in a down place right now, you got to find a way to start thinking more positively, because those positive thoughts are going to affect your actions, and your actions kind of affect your reality, and the reality that's around you. And so I think trying to cling to things that are good, cling to things that, having gratitude for the things that you have. You might not be exactly where you want to be, but there's probably quite a bit of good things in your life still. And so trying to stay thankful for the things that you do have. So I think that's my message of positivity. And then beyond that, I don't want to be all preachy or anything like that, but I think the only reason I've been able to get where I am is because of my faith in God. And so if that's something you're curious about, feel free to reach out.
Spoken like a true prodigy. And don't worry about being preachy too, because there actually have been a couple guys I've interviewed that have kind of walked darker paths, so to speak. They were able to come around and have faith in both God and
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ too. So, and it was good stories.
Amen.
So it's good to hear. All right. So Adam, we've reached the end of my podcast right here. Is there any shout outs or any final words you want to say before we officially close?
No, that's it. I really appreciate you having me.
No worries. I thought you were going to say shout out to all the subscribers and everything too, but that works. All right. So everyone, I guess today was Adam Zalewski, hailing from Michigan. Go check out his channel, subscribe, and I guess, is there any other ways they can reach you?
Oh yeah, they can check me out. Check my group out on Facebook. Complete Worship Drummer. Not Complete Worship. First, my website is completeworshipdrummer.com, and you can also check out my Facebook group called Drummers Who Worship on Facebook. And you can reach me on Facebook there, and I'll definitely add you as a friend if you join the group. So you can reach out to me there. Other than that, that's about it.
Sounds good. All right. Adam, you stay safe. Stay tuned, y'all.
All right. God bless.